Whether it's starting school for the first time, meeting a new sibling, or saying goodbye to an old friend, life is full of changes and it is not easy. It is particularly difficult for young children. On this next episode, I'd like to guide you parents on how to support your children and guide them through these processes and help them go through these changes. On the next episode of Ask the Doc, no appointment needed.
Funding for this program is brought to you by Michael J. Zinner, MD.
Send in your questions to questions@allhealthtv.com or AllHealthGo on Facebook or YouTube, or visit the Ask the Doc page on our website, allhealthtv.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Scarlet Constant, board-certified pediatrician and founder of Constant Care Pediatrics here in Miami, Florida. On this episode of Ask the Doc, No Appointment Needed, I'm going to address a lot of the concerns that parents have with just the normal changes that might occur throughout life. I'd like you to send in your questions via Facebook, All Health TV, or email us, and I'll answer your questions live. It looks like we have a question coming in now, and this question is from Francis. Hi, Dr. Constant. Our daughter is going to be headed to her first year of elementary school next year. We'd like to know how early you think parents should start preparing their kids for big changes like first grade. Well, congratulations, Francis. And first grade really is a big step. And I think the best way to help guide your daughter and support her in this big change is to not only talk about it during her kindergarten year, which I'm sure they do at school. At least the good thing with kindergarten is that they're preparing and they have what's called a commencement. So it's really closing out their kindergarten year and having them transition into first grade. So it's more of a transitional time where they understand they're going to graduate and then go on to bigger and better things in first grade. So I think it's wonderful that they have that in kindergarten. But as far as what I would advise for you to do at home is really just let your child know that she's accomplished so much in kindergarten and she is now ready and has the tools to move on to first grade. So it doesn't seem like something that's daunting or scary or unattainable. It's actually a natural progression for her. So you would just compliment her on the things that she's been able to achieve in kindergarten and what she's been able to do and how she has naturally moved forward to go on to the next step. I don't think that it should be that we should make such a big deal out of it or tell her she's going to a big girl school with big kids, because then that's what seems a little daunting to them, where it's something that is it's a scare, almost a scary unknown. I think the most important thing to do is highlight how this is an actual transition and it will be easy because she's already worked toward getting to first grade. Congratulations again, and good luck, and I hope she enjoys her new school year. It looks like we have a question now coming in from Tyson. Hey, Doc, we're bringing home a new baby in just a few weeks, and while we're excited, we're also a little worried. Our toddler Tyrell has been the center of attention, and now we're not sure how he'll adjust to sharing the spotlight with a baby sister. Well, congratulations on your new baby. I hope that when you were pregnant, you spoke to your son a little bit about what was to come and that your son was going to be an older brother and have a sibling in the house. And usually leading up into the delivery, we try to include our children in the process, whether it's setting up the baby room or buying materials, but really preparing them for the fact that there will be another being in the home and that person is here to stay. I think a lot of times the siblings are excited about a new baby and they're excited about having a sibling, but they don't truly understand that the sibling is staying in their home, not just visiting. So I think just really stressing that the baby will be in the home. This is their room, or if they're sharing a room, this is their space, and just making it clear this is a permanent change that's going to happen in the home. And then when you finally do deliver and the baby is born, it's certainly very important for Tyrell to go to the hospital and meet his new sibling in the hospital and understand that he's going to bring this sibling home into his home and share a space with him. Those are very good ways to just ease them into the transition. And then after they do come home, then you also want to make sure Tyrell is a part of everything with the baby. You don't want to send him to his room or try to have like some or tell him maybe that he has to sit away because you're busy with the baby. He should really be involved in as much as possible in the caretaking of the baby so he feels included and this is a family unit rather than something happening to you and your wife and the baby. It's something happening to all four of you. So I would say including him and preparing him and making it clear to him that this is a permanent change that is going to happen. Congratulations again. So it looks like we have a question coming in now from Facebook. This question is from Dahlia. Dr. Constant, our 8-year-old boy is really close with his grandfather. Unfortunately, Pop Pop is terminally ill and only has a month or so. How can we prepare our boy for the inevitable loss of his beloved grandpa? Well, Dahlia, I'm very sorry to hear this, and this is always so difficult. We love having grandparents around, and it's so amazing for our kids to have this beautiful bond with their grandparents. But on the other end, unfortunately, they will have to at some point face the loss of the grandparent if all things are happening naturally. It's great for you to sit down and have a conversation and explain that, grandpa is older and is sick and is not able to really keep on going for much longer and explain that this is a natural process and after a certain number of years it is normal for an elderly person to pass away and that this is what's going to happen to their grandpa. And you really don't have to go into it where we have to speak about death and everybody eventually dies. I mean, that just gets a little complicated and it does um, put a little bit of fear into the children about us, and their friends or their teachers. So I would really leave it at the level of an older person living their life and getting a little sick and having to really just over time they rest and they are resting in peace and that's a normal process and yes, while it's sad because we'll miss them, it is not sad that it's happening. It is something that is natural and something to be expected. So I think it's fair to be as honest as you can and let them know that it's normal to grieve and to cry and to be sad. And then we move forward because this is part of life. You can even discuss the circle of life. I think it's fair to talk to a young child about that. Okay, if you want to submit your questions, please take a look at this promo to see how to do it.
Send in your questions to questions@allhealthtv.com or AllHealthGo on Facebook or YouTube, or visit the Ask the Doc page on our website, allhealthtv.com.
Welcome back. And it looks like we have some questions coming in. Here's a question from Cisco. Hola, Dr. Constant. We've also got a question about the loss of a loved one. Our daughter's pet cat, Miss Kitty, was recently hit by a car and didn't make it. We haven't told our baby yet. Do you have any suggestions on the best way to do it? Oh, I am so sorry. That sounds terrible. It depends on the age of your daughter. I think that less than, 8 years of age, I think that you would just tell your young child that you sent the cat away somewhere. If your child is a little bit older, maybe 7, 8 years old or older, and you do wanna talk to them about, death and losses, and you absolutely let them know that unfortunately the cat was killed and it was very sad. And they have closure and they understand that the cat is gone. I think it's fair to tell a child that accidents do happen and there's nothing wrong with that. So, depending on the age of your child, I would certainly tell them and they could say goodbye and that's normal, but I think if it's a young child, it might be best for you just to say that you sent them away somewhere. Okay, so we have a question coming in now from Lamar. Hello, Dr. Constant. My boy Lucius is 9 years old, and I bet my last dollar that he's about to hit puberty. I think they kind of addressed it at school, but I'm thinking we should do it at home as well. What do you think, Doc? Okay, Lamar. Yes, it depends on the school and where you live, but it sounds I've been hearing more and more recently that schools are not really discussing it. So I think it is very important for you to talk to your child about puberty and about the changes that he is supposed to expect as a young boy going into adolescence. So let's discuss it here. Here are some bullet points about the different changes that you're looking at in boys and girls. In girls, we tend to see mood changes. You see a little bit of emotional lability. You might notice that the girls are developing a little more body odor. First of all, you'll notice it after sports or exercise. And then over time, you start to notice it even without the full exercise. You'll see a growth spurt, which we've all seen in our children at home, where they might either grow in height or you see changes in their body. Maybe with the girls, you might see breast development. We start to notice oily skin and maybe even some acne eruptions. Of course, especially at the doctor's office, we check for underarm hair and pubic hair, but you might notice this at home. Of course, breast development. And finally, the sign that you've actually gone through puberty is the actually getting a menstrual period. Now, in boys, it's a little bit different. Yes, we see mood changes again. With the boys, a little more, we see a little more of a short fuse than we do with the girls, getting a little more angry than we're used to seeing. Also, a growth spurt, the boys get taller. We notice a little bit of oily skin and possible acne eruption. Of course, we look for pubic hair, underarm hair, but in boys, we might even see some facial hair. Finally, this is a little difficult because I know the boys are a little shy and they won't let you examine them at home, but we do in the office look for testicular growth and testicular growth and actually increase in size and hair. And then finally, some boys might admit to nocturnal emissions. They might not admit to that as easily, but that is something that is normal when they're going through puberty. So you might want to discuss this with your son and let him know that if these things are happening, it is normal, it is to be expected, and it's okay. They're not different, but they are just going through changes. And I like to talk to the kids about becoming a young man or a young woman and understanding what that means and why that's happening. It's important for them to understand why their body is changing. So I absolutely think you should be as open as possible and discuss it with your son. Okay, we have a question coming in now from Yuki. Greetings, Dr. Constant. My husband and I are getting ready to bring home our very first pet, a cockapoo puppy for our two kids, ages 8 and 4. How do we teach them to be gentle and respectful? Well, that's a good question. First, let's take a look at this video from the Mayo Clinic and then we'll discuss.
There's something special about seeing kids bonding with a pet. And there are benefits too, says Mayo Clinic pediatrician Dr. Angela Matke.
They can teach kids responsibility.
Having a dog, for instance, can teach children about boundaries and respect. But before bringing home a pet, Dr. Matke says there are some considerations.
What type of pet that you're going to be bringing into the family is really important, and it's important to have these conversations and discussions before you get the pet instead of having buyer's remorse later when you figure out that this might not be a good option for your family.
Also, does anyone in the family have allergies? Pet hair isn't an allergen, but the dander or saliva may cause allergic reactions for some people.
You want to make sure that you're getting a pet that's not going to make your child or somebody else in the family's health adversely affected from it.
Ask the questions, talk with the family, and be ready for a lifetime of responsibility and joy.
Having a family pet can be a wonderful experience for families.
For the Mayo Clinic News Network, I'm Jason Howland.
So before you get your pet, I think it's very important to sit down with your kids and talk to them about the do's and don'ts with pets. There are some basic rules like not pulling the tail, not chasing them or playing rough. Teaching them how to respect an animal and respect the fact that they are animals and animals still have their innate instincts. So, they might chase or bite or jump or harm you because they're acting on their own instinct. So it's important for the children to understand how an animal reacts, how to treat an animal with respect, what to do with them. I've always told my children, you don't lay on an animal's bed or go into his home or his crate because they're territorial and that's their home. So there are things that you want to discuss with your children before you get the pet that they understand so that they are able to demonstrate appropriate behavior around the pet. Of course, learning by example is always important. They'll see the way you treat your pet whether you've manhandled them or hit them or harmed them, or and how gentle you are with them. It's important for your kids to see this and understand. I think it's also important to start assigning roles to your children. So there is someone that's going to feed the dog, give the dog water, or walk the dog. I think it's important for the children to have these roles with their pet because they learn that you have to take care of the pet, that the pet is their responsibility, and without them their pet will not survive. So it is important to give them tasks, to give them a role in the caretaking of their pet, and also to teach them the rules on how to respect their animal, whether it's a dog or a cat or any other type of animal. Okay, so we looks like we have a question coming in from Ryder. Dr. Constant, I didn't grow up with a pet myself, but I keep hearing how valuable they can be for a child's emotional development. Why is that? And how do pets help teach empathy? Well, I think it's just really learning how to take care of someone else, whether it's a pet or another human being. Getting a pet teaches you how to care for someone else. It teaches you how to have actually a dependent, and that is a lot. That you're feeding them, you're taking care of them, you're caring for them when they're sick. They reciprocate and they love you and you love them back, and that is just a lesson that's invaluable. So if you can get a pet, I suggest it as well. Okay, it looks like if you want to send any questions, why don't you take a look at this promo and it'll show you how to do it.
Send in your questions to questions@allhealthtv.com or AllHealthGo on Facebook or YouTube, or visit the Ask the Doc page on our website, allhealthtv.com.
Okay, so it looks like we still have some questions coming in, guys. This question is from Cody. Hi, Doc. In your educated opinion, what's the single most important message for parents about helping children face any life change with resilience? Well, that's $1 million question, Cody. Thank you for that. You can't get through a lifelong change without having some type of effects, right? And I think that's the most important lesson to teach your child is that you are gonna get knocked down, you're gonna be down, you're gonna feel bad, whether you're in school or whether you are at work, maybe you are gonna fall behind a little bit, or you're gonna be unable to go to school, or it's gonna take you longer than someone else to get back on your feet from whatever change might have occurred. Um, as long as you're able to get yourself out of it and learn from whatever has happened and move forward, that's what's most important. Resilience is of course a beautiful gift and it's important, but some of us get knocked down and it's hard to come back up, and that's okay. We have to just support each other, and we have to, if we need help, we need to seek help. If we need more help than usual, we have to, seek therapy or ask your parents for help, or maybe you need someone to speak to. It's normal to be down for a while, but it is not normal to stay down and never move forward or get back up again. So I think that's the biggest lesson. And then with each event or adverse event that happens, you manage it as it comes. But as long as you can manage it as a family and be supportive to each other, I think that's the most important lesson. But I don't think all of us should try to be resilient. That's an impossible feat. Okay, it looks like we have a question coming in now from Eloise. Dr. Constant, more and more children are stepping into caregiving roles for aging parents or grandparents. How can families prepare young people emotionally for that kind of responsibility? Eloise, I really don't think that's you can be prepared emotionally, right? We were raised by our parents, and they're the authoritative figures, and they're the ones that we look up to, and no one ever wants to think about a time where the roles are reversed. I think that as you are growing up through life, that's a process that evolves, and we evolve into a person that understands that we will eventually take care for our parents. But to prepare a child emotionally for that, I don't think is really um, beneficial or productive. I think that as your parents take care of you, you are being raised over time. You are grateful for the way you were raised. You have the tools to become an independent person. You have the tools to become a productive person or human in society. And with those tools and with the gratitude over time, you can turn around and go ahead and do the same thing for your parents. So I think it's a natural process. Okay, let's see if we have any more questions. Looks like Corrine has a question. Hello, doctor. What coping tools or family rituals can help everyone stay connected and hopeful through tough times? Well, I think there are many family rituals and coping tools. Some people turn to religion, right? That's the most common that we've known of, is religion and having their parish and having parishioners that they're close to as a support group. But if you're not religious, then, you might have your family, which is very close, and you might have dinners every week, or maybe family meetings or family outings where you get together and discuss things and kind of work through what's going on. I think it's really great as a family to discuss what's happening around the world or just issues even that are happening within your family because that's a way for you to digest the information and discuss it amongst each other in a comfortable, safe space. And I think once you have open communication and you're able to understand what's happening around you, then it's easier to cope through tough times. So I think, your family dynamic, whether it's getting together for outings or dinners or discussions, I think, seeking your church. Maybe you have really good friends that you always meet with. You can discuss things with your family, but there's a friend group that really just is helpful to you and allows you to discuss what is going on, then maybe that's who you turn to. So I think it's important to always have some type of outlet in order to get through the tough times. So, I think overall, the general theme has been how do we prepare our children or how do we prepare them for adverse events, right? And I think that, the overall answer to that is that you can never prepare for an adverse event. I think the most important thing you can do is really just keep lines of communication open and never keep your children in the dark. I think the more they know and the more they understand, the better they are and the better they're prepared to deal with an adverse event. It looks like we have one more question coming in. Let's just take a look at that. Alexis, hi, Dr. Constant. What language or activities help prevent jealousy or resentment between siblings? I think a lot of that has to do with the way parents interact with their children. It is very easy to pick up on parents' attitude toward a child or the sibling, or either any other family members. So I think that most importantly, we have to look at ourselves and how we're interacting with our children, how we are treating both of our children, and whether or not um, we are showing any type of preference of one over the other. But to answer your question, to prevent that type of behavior is really to teach your kids that they are a unit, they are best friends. And in the natural process of life, parents will eventually die and leave their children behind with their siblings. And that sounds very harsh, but it's important for kids to understand that they are the ones that need to stick together because they're going to have to take care of each other when the parents are long gone and to teach them that they are to be the first and foremost best friends. They are best friends, they are siblings, and everybody else is going to be secondary to their siblings. They need to understand that they're equals. And while we might treat our children differently because they have different personalities or maybe different attributes, you love them the same and you love them equally. And that parents' love is divided. It is not, it is actually split equally. It's not shared or pulled one child versus the other. So I think those are very important lessons to convey in the home. And like I said, our behavior means everything to our children, and how we treat them compared to each other is very important. I think that most importantly, siblings should always understand that they need to back each other up. They need to always support each other because they're the only other person that shares everything with them. I remind my children about that almost every single day. I think they're sick and tired of hearing me say it, but I do think it's important. I think it's important that they understand that, in the natural process of life, we will go and we will leave that behind and they will only have each other. So these are some harsh topics to discuss with our children, but it is important. And I have to stress that you only discuss these things with your children when you see that they are emotionally and intellectually ready. there are some kids that are just not ready to have that conversation. And if you have it too soon, it's just out of context and it's not understood the way it should be. So you really want to assess your child. Every child is different, and you want to know where they are emotionally on an emotional level, and of course on an intelligence level, to see if they're even capable of understanding the concepts of life and death and circle of life and things like that, and just to be able to put these things into context and be able to understand and move forward and not fall into sadness or fear. So I think that every child is different, and we need to know when it's time to address these issues. Same thing with puberty and development. There are some children that don't even understand their bodies yet. So these are topics that you want to discuss when your child is ready and you see that they understand what is going on with their body and they understand that they are changing. So it's not important to tackle all of these things. Everybody knows their child. You know when they're curious, when they seem to be a little bit confused, or when they want to learn more. And that's when you start slowly discussing these types of topics with them, and just to get them to understand that change is here and change is good. I think it's also important to understand that change is always good. That means that we're moving forward, we're evolving, and we're not stuck. So I think that the most important thing is for us to shed light on the fact that change is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. We're not breaking bad news. It's not earth shattering news. This is just a natural progression. That's okay. Heavy topic today, but I hope that it was helpful. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Ask the Doc. No appointment needed.
Send in your questions to questions@allhealthtv.com or AllHealthGo on Facebook or YouTube, or visit the Ask the Doc page on our website, allhealthtv.com.
Funding for this program was brought to you by Michael J. Zinner, MD,